Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L and now let's talk some Death March Episode 2. Also, if the volume is too loud for this video, please let me know. This has been something that I think has been popping up in my videos and I'm not exactly sure why the audio is blowing out of speakers. But if that's your experience, that the audio is too loud, let me know. I just need to figure out what my problem is. Anyway, let's just get right into it. Death March. Alright, so like a pretty chill episode, you know, we're just sitting around, we meet things, we save the girl, we go around town, we learn a little bit about the town, and we get an eyeful full of food. And, you know, there's a lot of little moments that as a fan I really appreciate, but let's just talk about the episode. So, one of the big things for this episode is that it did take time to kind of establish the setting of where Satu is, and now I know I have to get in the habit of calling him Satu. Anyway, we just get to see the town that he's in, we get to meet Xena, and throughout the course of the episode we also meet the main girls that are in the opening. We see the two little slave girls, and we see the lizard girl, or the one with the red hair, and then we see the purple haired girl being carted away later on. So everything's being set up, and as far as the story goes, you know, it's going well so far. It's still pretty slow, and you know, depending on what type of viewer you are, that may not be something you're into, but at the same time, it's like light novel adaptations, unless it's a hardcore action series, tend to start off relatively slow for the first 3 episodes. Death March, because it has so many slice of life elements, it's going to be a bit slower than most. Maybe, I don't know, guys, when do you think we're gonna get? Actually, if we look at the manga adaptation, we could probably come up with a pretty good estimation at when certain events are going to happen, but let's not do that for today. Anyway, there are a few elements here that when I saw them I couldn't help but smile, and it mostly revolves around the food, because with the food and with the words that Satu says at the end, we pretty much complete the core aspect of Satu's personal motivations in this world. And it was just interesting to see. Now, before I get into the food bit, there was one more thing that I really appreciated, and that was, again, the use of the Gamelike Interface. I really enjoy it, and I like the way how the episode swapped from Satu talking to people and then just from his perspective, pretty much like it was, you were playing a visual novel pretty much. You know, when we have Xena in those scenes where she's just standing in front of him and we have the little like HUD right underneath her, I thought that's a really nice touch. I liked it. It reminds us what we're like, you know, what Satu is. And they really took it a step above when they have him discussing things with the guard captain, or you know, I think it was Xena's superior. When he's talking to her, he's acquiring skills, and then if you look at what's happening on screen, he's maxing out the skills as he's talking. I really enjoyed that. That was such a nice little detail. I really like how they're executing on the interface elements, because this is a relatively big thing for the light novel. Like, imagine what we just saw in a few seconds. That gets expanded upon in maybe about 7 lines. Satu going in and maxing his most crucial skills and talking about what skills he wants to prioritize does take up a good chunk of the light novel, and it's also like one of the more interesting things. If you're a gamer, or if you like playing RPGs and you enjoy building your character and maxing out stats, he's pretty much taking it as that type of mentality. So it was just cool to see how the anime executed on it, turning, I guess, maybe 7 lines and a few more lines of exposition and thought process into a very quick segment, just a few seconds long. I think that was a pretty nice execution. On a technical level, I think this is where Death March excels when it comes to other similar type anime, where animes that involve game interfaces, like I guess Sword Art, since Sword Art is the iconic one for this, but even compared to Lock Horizon, the way that they're doing like this very simple implementation, I think is way more stylish, and I really enjoy it. And last week we talked about the subs. The subs that I watched this week, thankfully, had a lot of information. So I really appreciate that, because like there's a lot of useful information that's going to be there for viewers to catch on to. So when they show up like one of the dialogue boxes and then the subs popped up on the other side, I was very thankful. I just want to understand what's going on, and just taking the second to just read what's going on. I feel really good doing that. Again, this might be a problem because it kind of demands a little bit more from the viewer, because you now have to kind of take your time to read more things. And for English speakers, it's a little bit worse because now we have to follow dialogue. So we have the subs on the bottom and then the subs that are popping up for the dialogue boxes, or sorry, for the status boxes. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but for slower readers, I could see this being potentially frustrating. It depends on how much focus the adaptation decides to put into that element. That said, the episode did it sparingly, but I want to touch on it because this is one of the few opportunities that you will ever get to have to talk about the technicality when implementing subtitles, and I think that's worthwhile to some degree, and it's just interesting to see what people are going to ultimately end up saying about the series. Moving on, let's go into the food. So when we start the food, when he's like looking at the food that he's eating, I smile and I'm just thinking like, yeah, this is Death March. We're here, we're doing it, we're doing Death March now. And just how he describes his food, like just talking about the textures and all that and the flavors, I found it really funny. And then I remember this is being done by Silverlink, and then I recall Silverlink previously before this did another anime called Isekai Shukudo, or the Restaurant to Another World, which was a predominantly good feeling food series. So that came out I think last year. No, actually I'm very sure last year. So in my mind, my conspiracy theories are kind of just like bumping up a little bit, and all I'm thinking is they did that series to practice for Death March. Because we know that anime series are done maybe, or sorry, episodes for an anime usually are done maybe 3 weeks. Like, they're working against the clock, they have deadlines. They're done maybe 3 or 4 weeks before actual deadline. Actually, I don't know that, but I know that it's done relatively close to the actual air date. But I consider that, and I think like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they specifically took on this series to get better at making food look good, because it's just funny. It's funny that they had a series that was all about food right before this. Well, not right before this, but like relatively right before this, and then you have Death March, which is also just an exploration of food. Like, looking for the food is one of the biggest trials that the boy will ever have in Death March. But yeah, I just found it funny. I do believe that that other one, the Restaurant to Another World, I do believe that it was an original, so that like also makes me think it more. But like, regardless, I'm happy that they had that done before and that it did so well, because at least they got practice before they had to start doing Death March. But it's ultimately just funny little observations. Anyway, let's see, anything else in the episode. We got to meet the girl and the world building. There is a lot of world building here. And like, just to list it off, we learned of the Yamato Stone, we learned of the slavery laws, we learned of the beast, the demi-humans discrimination that's going on in this part of the land. We learn of, well, on Satu's side, we learn a bit of his status, and we see that he gets a few titles. That's going to be important later. Yeah, we have the inn, world elements, any other world elements? No. It's alright. We also see like Satu's maps and everything. Yeah, you know, there are a few world elements being thrown in there, and they're all coming at a relatively nice pace, so I don't think it's like too much information overload. Oh, and yeah, in this episode we see the mask and the wig. That's going to be exciting too. You know, it's a lot of cool things. If anything, I look back at this and I think to where we are like with the novels, and I look back to this and I think like, you know, the author did put a lot of foreshadowing in those early stages, and I really appreciate it. So with the food, and then with the final segment we have of Satu, where he's talking about how he wants to see the world, he wants to take in as much, and then he wants to learn things as a game developer. You know, at that point, that's where we pretty much set the tone for what this character wants to accomplish. We see that he's passionate about the food from the way that he describes, and we see that he's passionate about the vistas that he is seeing in this other world. And we also have him rationalizing what's going on here. So I think it's also very interesting when he does say that returning home is secondary. And I also love the rationalization that he found tastes that he hasn't had before, and I think saw food that wasn't normal, and this place wasn't like most other games, or he couldn't recognize the world. Little things like that. I enjoy it, and it just kind of shows the character is a little bit competent. But overall, like, episode 2 is a world establishing episode. It's a goal establishing episode. We, you know, by the end we have what we're gonna do, sightsee, and then maybe find a way home. And we just see the main girls kind of pop up. Overall, I'm still excited. I am very curious how casual viewers are finding it. If you, by some chance, are just a normal viewer, let me know what your experience is so far. My opinion is going to be very skewed because I'm watching this out of love for the original material. I'm more concerned about how the average person is feeling about this adaptation. So if you have anything to add or say, let me know down below. And yeah, let's end it there. Thanks for everything, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I hope you have a great day.